Hey losers, I'm Coral. Welcome to my channel. If you're here for the first time, thanks for joining me. I mostly read horror books, but I read a wide variety of genres as long as it's dark and creepy and unsettling. So if you're into that, welcome to the party. Today I'm here with the books that I finished in the first half of the month. Just a few, so hopefully, I say this every time, but hopefully this wrap up isn't too long. And then I proceed to somehow spend 30 minutes talking about half the amount of books. I don't know how I fucking managed to do it, but I do. It's incredible. It's one of my skills. Honestly, I'm surprised. I'm surprised that I managed to read 5 books. I'm proud of myself. It's been a 2 weeks. This week I had 2 vet appointments and a doctor's appointment to attend, so my time has been greatly reduced, you know, especially with school. And part of my time that I usually set aside to read is when I pick my daughter up from school, but Zach has been like really helpful recently, and he's been trying to get home from work in time to pick our daughter up so that I can continue working on school stuff. So it's like really nice that he does that because I work on school stuff, but also I'm like, oh man, because that's like my reading time, and then I don't read, I do my school stuff. But you know, what can you do? So, to get into my book stats, in total, this 2 weeks, I read 5 books. 4 of these were off of my TBR, which are books that I owned previous to this year. I read, as of this recording, 1,598 pages. I just couldn't squeak out this 2 more, I guess, which is about 122 pages per day. I read 4 horror books and 1 sci-fi book. The oldest book I read was published in 1982, and the most recent was a new release, which came out in 2024. Let's first talk about The Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi. This came out in 2022, and I was really excited to pick this up. This was last month's TBR cart pick. So I rolled my dice. This is what was randomly chosen. And I think I liked the idea of this more than I liked the story of it. I just felt like it was really meandery for a lot of it. And then even when it got to the plot, like the real big conflict, I just kind of felt meh about it. But this is about a man named Jamie. This takes place, like, the beginning of this book takes place right at the beginning of the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. So if you're sick of that, I don't know if you'll want to pick this up, because this does mention that a lot. And he has like a really cushy job at a tech company. He's doing like it's kind of like a Grubhub, Uber Eats type company. And then he gets fired from that position and ends up doing like food delivery. So he's like heavily demoted from his position, and it's like really hurting him. He's not sure how he's going to afford to keep living, basically. So he's really lucky when an old college friend turns up and offers him a job. It's a really mysterious job. He doesn't even tell him like what the position is, but he's like, if you show up here, you'll definitely have a job, and it pays really well, but I can't tell you what the position is, and if you agree to do this, there's like a confidentiality clause. Like you will be gone for most of the year, you make a lot, but you cannot mention this to anybody. You cannot mention what you're doing. And it turns out that they're going to like an alternate reality Earth, and they're taking care of kaiju. And it's kind of confusing because, and actually I was like looking at it again to make sure that I was remembering it right, because here in the synopsis it says that they're the universe's largest and most dangerous pandas, which when I was thinking that they were going to be literally pandas, but then in the book they do kind of talk about how they're just like equating them to pandas in the way that they're kind of dumb. They don't take care of themselves very well. They kind of need shepherds, almost like human shepherds, to make sure that they don't go extinct. So that's what people are doing on this alternate Earth. Making sure that the kaiju, which are kind of kaiju how we traditionally see them, Godzilla-esque, but not actual Godzilla. You know, really monstery kaiju, not cute pandas. You know, make sure that they can survive and procreate and things like that. So that's what this book is about. And I liked the kaiju. I don't think that... I wish that the kaiju would have been described better, because I can picture the kaiju that we have in movies like Gamora and Godzilla and Mothra, you know, but I want to know what these kaiju look like, and I feel like they weren't really described super well. And so I kept wondering, they were just kind of like, in my head, like brown, kind of like scaly, lumpy blobs. And like I wanted to know what they looked like. So that was a little bit disappointing. And I just felt like there was just a really lot of day-to-day stuff. It was almost like a slice of life in a Kaiju Preservation Society guy until the conflict happened. And then by the time that happened, I was just kind of like, eh. And that was it. That's what I felt about that. It was really just kind of middle of the road for me. It's you know, it's a little bit humorous, but I just was really interested in the kaiju. And I don't know. Then I picked up The Suffering by M.J. Mars, which is a book that came out in 2023. This is an indie horror book, and this is a book that I read maybe like 20-30 pages of a few months ago. I think that was this year. And I put it down again, or I put it down once, and then I picked it up again because, I don't know, it was just bothering me, being unsure whether I'm going to get rid of it or not, even though I've got other books that I have on my shelf that I've put down for now, kind of situations. This is about a group of college kids who live in one of their like family homes, and it's connected to this kind of haunting that stems from this seance that happened where these I believe it's two men summoned the ghosts of these bad people. And I keep thinking of 13 Ghosts when I think of it, but only for one reason. And that's because the ghosts, they chose these, the ghosts of these people. I don't even know how to word it. It's like, here's what the book says. When the first seance happens, years and years ago at this family home, they are trying to summon spirits that fit these 5 categories. It says malice, strength, stealth, deception, and frivolity. So they have to choose 5 people who have died and fit those 5 things. So that's why it felt like 13 ghosts to me at first. But then really after that, I feel like it really doesn't, you know, there's nothing else to do with 13 ghosts except for that maybe these ghosts continue to haunt people. There is this first seance that happens long ago, and then after that, you know, the house is rumored to be haunted. It stays in the family of the man who performed the seance, and now years and years later, these college kids live there. They're kind of joking around one night and they decide to perform the seance again. And now they're very certain that the house is haunted, and they think maybe even that they're being singled out individually by, like each of them is being targeted by a ghost. And so they have to figure out how to get rid of them. And I think I liked the friend group. I think that the friend group was written pretty good. Each of the individuals, they felt like they were well fleshed out, but I felt a certain type of way about all of these books this month where, or almost all of them, where it was like, by the time I was getting to the conclusion of things, I just kind of didn't care about what was happening. Okie dokie. Next, I'd like to tell you about Burn the Negative by Josh Winning. This is a horror novel about a woman named Laura who, in her past, as a child named Polly, was in a film that has kind of reached cult status because a lot of the people involved ended up dying deaths that were similar to the deaths of the characters in the film. So that is very ooky spooky. And she's like one of the only like living members now. And now she's an adult. Because of the weirdness surrounding this movie, she's changed her name. She does not live in America anymore, but she goes back. She's a journalist and she's kind of undercover. And not willingly covering this story, but she's covering this story, you know, talking about this remaking of this film. Now they're doing a TV adaptation. Now things are going wrong again, and she gets mixed up in things. And again, I just thought that this one actually just kind of started out boring, and I thought continued to be boring. She's got kind of an abusive mother and a sister that's just kind of hanging on her, which I did kind of feel bad for her sister, but it ends up being like this trio of her sister, who's trying to make it big in the biz, and the psychic who ends up tagging along. And the psychic, I need to look up what movie that's in. I wonder, is it Witchboard? I keep thinking it's Witchboard, but I can't remember. Oh, it is. In my head, I kept picturing her like the psychic in the movie Witchboard, if you've ever seen that. She's played by Kathleen Wilhoit, I think. The character's name is Zarabeth, and she ends up dying in a really kind of funny way in that movie. But I don't know if that's what Josh Winning was going for, but if he was, it kind of worked. Anyway, so there's like this trio, but like none of them were like very compelling to me at all. I don't know. Is it my mood? Because I read these 3 books and none of them were doing it for me at all. So we get to the end, and you know, Laura's kind of this whole way being haunted by the creepy guy from this movie that she was in called The Needle Man, and it's obviously, she's not certain if it's a real man or if it is something supernatural, and it must tie back to her past. And once we get to the bottom of that, I found the psychology of that kind of interesting. But like, that's it. It's like, I probably should have just put this book down, but I didn't. And so there we go. I didn't do that. I don't know why. Sometimes I just, it's almost like I forget that I have the option of DNFing something. So there we go. I do have another one of Josh Winning's books, and he wrote this book that like is set in like the Dark Crystal world that I really want to fucking read. So, and I will say, I don't think that I think that he is a good writer. I just think that this was boring also somehow. And it's weird to say that, I think. And I'm not sure what that means. Okay, I want to save the best for last because my fourth book, The Unmothers by Leslie J. Anderson. This I actually read. This was offered by Libro FM through their ALC program. So I read this, a free copy of it. Thank you, Libro FM. I have an affiliate link in the description, my link tree. It's in the description of my video. If you click on my link tree, there will be a link that will take you to that if you're interested. I think you get a free month, a free audiobook if you sign up for this subscription. This was a folk horror book that came out this year, just last month, I believe. And I thought that the premise of this was so interesting. This is about a reporter who actually shares a name with someone I was friends with in high school. She has changed her name. She goes by a different name now, which is why I feel like I can share that. And it's not so weird. She lives in LA now and she works in showbiz, baby. And she uses a different name. A reporter gets put on assignment to go to this small town where they say that a horse has given birth to a human infant. And there's like a picture where like the child's father, a human father, is holding the infant. And so you're like, well, that can't be possible, that the infant has a horse mother and a dad father, a human dad father. So what's going on here? And so she gets sent to this place, and it's like very folk horror where an outsider gets sent into this insular, kind of weird, very small town. And what's going on? There's a big industry around horses. It's like very much the community thing where people show horses, breed horses. Everyone loves horses. And you know, I haven't been on a horse in a long time. And one of my really close friends growing up had horses, and I haven't thought about it in a long time, but I kind of miss that, riding a horse. I was not a professional by any means, but one time a horse almost stepped on my head, and that was really scary. I was behind her, we were riding a horse without a saddle, and I like slowly slid off sideways and fell on the ground, and the horse stepped on my hair, and it was really scary. Anyway, so like, what the fuck's going on? No one will answer any questions. Everyone's like, well, and the vet's like, well, the horse gave birth, and the mom's like, well, or the boy, because the boy is like 16 years old, the boy's mom's like, well, it's his baby, so what the fuck's going on here? And the reporter, the journalist, investigator gets to the bottom of it. And I thought, like, that is so interesting. What the fuck? This is so weird. There is no foal. So what's going on? Obviously, a horse and a human cannot have a baby. And it seems like the women of this community know much more about what's going on than the men of this community. So like, what does that mean? I probably shouldn't say any more, but like the premise was so interesting. And then like not much happens for a lot of the book. It's just like a lot of moving around and people talking to each other and stuff like that. I really wish some more interesting stuff would have happened, and it like kind of didn't. And I stuck with it because I really wanted to know what happened, but I don't know. I didn't think it was a bad book. I thought that the mystery was really interesting. I've not read another book like it, but I felt a little bit let down about it being such a strange premise, and then what? You know? Not that the reveal wasn't good, because I also felt like it was a good reveal. But I don't know. Anyway, on to my favorite book that I read so far this month. This is Katie by Michael McDowell. This was published in 1982, and this is about two young women, Katie Slape and Philo Drax. And Philo is a small town girl who lives in poverty with her mother. They're really, really scraping by. At the beginning of the book, Philo and her mother get a letter from their from Philo's estranged grandfather saying, "I'm sorry, I've abandoned you for 25 years or something like that. In the last few years, I have been crippled. Your brother married, so there's someone to take care of me. But I suspect that she has killed your mother's brother, and now she's married and brought in this dreadful husband and step-granddaughter, and I'm worried that they're gonna kill me and take away my fortune and my land because he's a farmer. And so please help me. Send your lovely daughter Philomela to save me." And so Philo goes to try to save her grandfather, and unfortunately, he can't be saved. And there starts this, I don't know, it's almost a feud between the Slape family, mainly Katie, and Philo Drax. The Slapes are these kind of stupid but very cunning criminal family, and Katie in particular is very bloodthirsty, and she has a psychic power, which like really makes this book very fun. I enjoyed this immensely. I'm so glad that I picked this up, because otherwise this month would have been really trash, I think. This was a book where I didn't have a lot of time to read, but like I was like, oh god, I just wish I could be done with everything so I can pick this up. You know, I definitely put off doing things I needed to do so that I could read this. And it was really a roller coaster, just like terrible things happening, brutal things happening, and then like, oh, sweet, nice things happening, and then, oh my god, like the worst, most unfortunate things happening, and then like, oh, finally a nice thing happening, and then like, oh my god, I can't believe that happened, that's terrible. And it was just so much fun. And when you think about it, it's like, if the Slapes hadn't happened to Philo, like, the end game Philo would never be. And you'll just have to read the book, and I think this is like one of my very favorite books of this year. It was so good. So those are the books that I've read so far this month. I'd love to know what you've read so far, what you've liked, if you've read any of these, and that's all I have for now. Catch me in my next video. I will talk to you later. Goodbye.